Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. My name is Dr. Jason Gagne. I'm a board-certified veterinary nutritionist and the Director of External Relations here at the Purina Institute. We're here today to introduce a new, comprehensive resource dedicated exclusively to the nutritional management of healthy cats and dogs. It's a one-of-a-kind resource with a global perspective containing unbiased, science-based information, and it's designed with the busy veterinary professional in mind, containing tips and tools to help with veterinary healthcare teams having those difficult nutrition conversations with clients. The Purina Institute is a global professional organization that shares Purina's leading-edge research, as well as evidence-based information from the wider scientific community. We do so in an accessible and actionable way to empower the veterinary professional to put nutrition at the forefront of pet health discussions to further improve and extend the healthy lives of pets through nutrition. Importantly, at the Purina Institute, we focus solely on that intersection between nutrition and science, and not on specific products or claims. With that, today, I'm excited to announce the launch of the Purina Institute Handbook of Canine and Feline Well Pet Nutrition. It's a follow-up to our previous handbook that we launched in 2023, known as the Handbook of Canine and Feline Clinical Nutrition, which discussed nutritional management as related to cats and dogs with conditions. Alongside me, I have a fantastic group of individuals. They are all veterinary nutrition professionals, and they're going to help me over this next hour discuss how we go about incorporating this new tool, this new resource, this handbook, into everyday practice. Starting off to my left, Dr. Catherine Lennox. She is one of our co-editors and authors. She's a board-certified veterinary nutritionist here at the Purina Institute. Dr. Jonathan Stockman is one of our co-editors and a board-certified veterinary nutritionist working at the University of California, Davis. Dr. Cecilia Villaverde, one of our co-editors and authors. She's a board-certified veterinary nutritionist and EBVS specialist in veterinary and comparative nutrition based in Ireland. Ashley Self, who is one of our authors, a veterinary technician specialist, and she is based at Texas A&M University. And Dr. Marianne Murphy, one of our authors, who's a board-certified veterinary nutritionist at the University of Tennessee. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you for your time. Would you mind sharing with us what is the primary goal in the creation of the Purina Institute Handbook of Canine and Feline Well Pet Nutrition?
Yeah, Jason, that's a really great question. So the goal of the Purina Institute Handbook of Canine and Feline Well Pet Nutrition is really to help increase and facilitate the nutrition conversations that happen in practice. We know that 96% of pet owners want and trust their veterinary professionals to have nutrition conversations with them. We also know that only about 22% of veterinary professionals are having routine, regular, proactive nutrition conversations with their pet owners. And we also know that 78% of pet owners feel that getting nutrition advice is an important or extremely important part of their satisfaction in their veterinary clinic. Overall, the data shows that we, as veterinarians, may not be having nutrition conversations with veterinary professionals as well. We may not be having nutrition conversations as often as ideal. And when I say often as ideal, that refers to both the pet and pet health, but also to what the owner desires.
Yeah, no, it's thank you for that. That's a very interesting disparity that you bring up between, trusting the veterinarian at that 96%, 22% of the profession being proactive about having the conversation, and then, 78% of them ranking it as important or important during that. So why do we, as a group, why do we think that disparity exists? Are there hurdles that occur during those appointments and those conversations?
Yeah, I think there are several hurdles that veterinarians have when it comes to having these discussions. For one, many times the appointments are pretty short. You don't really have a lot of time to refer to any resources that you want to look at before you're having these conversations with owners. Also, as a global issue in veterinary education, I think sometimes nutrition is not emphasized enough. So a lot of veterinarians graduate without having the confidence that they need in having these conversations, especially when there are opposing opinions regarding nutrition. So it's really helpful to have a resource that provides accurate and credible information. It's also quick to refer to and provide this additional information that you need for these discussions in the clinic.
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a number of hurdles, and again, we're launching this book because we want it to be used as a tool to help with those conversations. If I was to tell you, in terms of 100% of the topics that are discussed as during an appointment, as part of the survey that Catherine had mentioned, those results, those percentages, nutrition is currently ranked as number 18 during the appointment. So we're hoping, we know we can, kind of uplift that and bring nutrition more to the forefront of those conversations. So with that, Marianne, would you mind commenting on why this book is exclusively focused on well pet nutrition? Just why is nutrition so important? Why should we care to raise it from conversation or topic 18 during a...
Sure. I mean, so when we have patients that are coming into the clinic, the vast majority of those are actually healthy cats and dogs. And so in order to give them their best life overall, you have to give them appropriate nutrition. Nutrition is the foundation for all of that. And our goal is to help the veterinary team figure out how to optimize that nutritional base so that they continue to have a healthy life overall. So this book is designed to give you all of that well pet information that is harder to parse out of a lot of resources that are out there because they're often focused on those patients that have different conditions. And so here is your opportunity to, if I have a patient where it's a growing kitten, okay, let me pull out the reference and look at that, and it's quick and actionable.
Thank you very much. And as we look to kind of how, over the years of how pet owners' mindsets are changing and how they looked at their pets and pets being incorporated more from, a pet into the family environment, the landscape of veterinary medicine is changing where pet owners are more, they're being more proactive about pet health. So, Ceci, would you be able to give us your thoughts on how a tool like this book can be used to aid in that discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think like everyone said so far, our clients are more and more interested in the role that nutrition plays in health for themselves or ourselves as people, and also for their pets, which are part of the family, right? And there's this disconnect of if the vet team doesn't bring that up, they might not bring it up. So if they're not getting the information from the veterinary team, they will be getting it elsewhere. Yeah. Which can be great information, but I think the veterinary team is the one that knows best the pet. They know their sensitivities, they know their health risks. They're going to be the best able to provide individualized nutritional advice, right? So I think the goal of the Purina Institute Handbook of Canine and Feline Well Pet Nutrition is to give the tools to the veterinary profession, everybody in the clinic, to bring that up and to make sure, because what we want is the same. No? We all want the pet to be alive as long as possible and have a great life and sleep in your bed, whatever you want. And the team is the one that, the vet team is the one that's best equipped to do that, and we just give them this extra confidence. So this book is, as everybody said, it's very practical, very applicable in the moment. So hopefully we'll be helping clinics provide the confidence and the information they need to achieve our goals that way.
Yeah, just to build on that, when there's a lot of information available, there's also a lot of misinformation that's available. And if you don't have a credible resource to refer to, you can even endanger your pet's health. So it's really important to have that credible resource that you can refer to have accurate and science-based information.
No, those are great points. I appreciate that. And we are, as veterinary specialists ourselves here, but the veterinary professional in general, we are the best equipped to be doing this. And I will come back to this point a little bit later as I'm thinking about my questions here, and how do we insert this book into more of a learning tool within more of a veterinary curricula. But in the meantime, there are a number of books that we learn from as students, whether we're veterinary technicians, we're veterinarians, whatever we may be within the profession. How does this book differ from other veterinary textbooks? Jonathan, can you comment to that?
Yeah, I think there are three main ways that this book is different. The first one is this book really focuses on the healthy pet, which is different from a lot of other textbooks that usually focus on the disease management. So we really want to focus on how do we focus on healthy pets in order to keep them healthy as long as possible. The second way it's different is that it really provides a lot of comprehensive information, but it does it in a very concise way, so you can refer to it quickly and get all the information that you need relatively easily without having to read an entire book that takes a while. So it's something that you can use in the clinic pretty easily. And the third way is the way the book is organized, focusing on life stages from infancy to growth to reproduction and even senior pets, but also looking at some health tendencies. So still looking at the healthy pet, but pets that are potentially at risk if we do not provide them with adequate nutrition to develop some health conditions.
Predispositions.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's great, thank you. Well, that said, who is the primary audience for this book?
Yeah, that is a wonderful question, and I think the Purina Institute has done a wonderful job at making this handbook kind of fit for two groups. One being veterinary teams, so the general practitioners, the veterinary nurses, truthfully even just other staff and admin in the hospital to get everybody on board with some foundational nutrition, but then also students, recognizing that we really want to develop and provide some access to well pet nutrition to students as well. So it's done in a very concise, straightforward manner. So even on the busy days where you feel like, I can't even grab lunch today, you could reference this book and there's key takeaways at the beginning of each of the chapters. So even if you don't have time to review the entire chapter, you could snag these takeaways and be able to still have good conversation with your owners.
That's a great answer, Ashley. I appreciate that because the profession is so busy, and to the point we were talking earlier about how nutrition can be number 18 in the topic, right? Of all the topics discussed during a short appointment time, as you've mentioned as well, Jonathan. But nutrition is so important, and Marianne, thank you for your answer earlier about focusing on that because it roughly, if you look globally, even like around 90% of pets that go to a vet clinic or hospital, they are healthy. So we need to be able to bring nutrition again to the forefront here. So let's jump into the book a little bit. Let's talk about when we physically open this book and Ceci, we look at it, why are there different sections to this book and why is each section included?
Yeah, so the book, the handbook is divided into 5 sections and each of them has a purpose. The first one would be nutrients and their functions. So that's a quick and dirty review of what are the macronutrients, the micronutrients, what do they do? And it's basically the foundation for the rest of the book. So your basic nutrition knowledge. Second would be your life stage feeding. So as Jonathan was talking about, how do we feed them from infancy until their elder age, and if they are reproduced, or in some specialized situations like in a shelter, which nutritional consideration must be different as a pet in the home. Third part is proactive nutrition, and it refers specifically as the predispositions. So are they obese prone? How can I prevent that? Do they have a sensitive stomach, or does my cat have hairballs? I really like about this section that they talk about oral and dental health, which our clients are always super worried, but you don't get a lot of textbook information on dental and oral prevention at home. And then fourth would be maybe my favorite, because that's my weak point, which is my communication skills. So we might know a lot, and I think veterinary professionals know way more about nutrition than we think, but communicating that can be way harder, can be a sensitive topic, also overwhelming. Like you go to the pet store, you find thousands of choices, so it's not an easy talk. So that gives you a lot of tips, not like general recommendations, but actual tips on how can I have this conversation with my client. And finally, the last section is how to apply nutrition in practice. So different ways that everybody in the clinic can apply, like how to take a good diet history, how to perform a nutritional assessment. And that's heavy on practical tools, so things that we can use very quickly, easy.
Yeah, no, thank you. Every one of these sections definitely plays a role. I love that it gives like kind of the foundational information that you're talking about, but then how we can go about communicating that, and then most importantly, at the end, how do we apply this, and how do we implement this knowledge into those appointments? It's an excellent book. It's an excellent tool for us to bring again nutrition to the forefront here. Let's talk a minute about the significance, though, of communication. And I would beg to differ. I think you're an excellent communicator. I've communicated with you for many years, Hessie. So, I do think that communication is extremely important. It's one thing to say, do this, step A, B, C, D, but then can the panel here comment on how do we go about actually enacting that and following up with that and bringing it to life?
Well, and I think that's a key that is a strength of this book, is that there's a focus on having communication tips in every chapter. There's the whole section devoted to communication. I know that a lot of the things that I hear when I talk to veterinary students, other professionals within the veterinary clinic team, is that they find it very challenging to know what is the best way to communicate about this topic. How do you actually bring this up to an owner? Even if it's something where I'm trying to look at their risk factors and prevent something from happening down the road, what's the best way to bring that up in the exam room when I only have 15 minutes? And so a great aspect of this book is that it's got that focus, because every member of the team needs to be empowered to be able to do that. You don't all have my number on speed dial, right? So you can't call me. I can't talk to every single one of those clients. So this book was designed to help with that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
That's the thing for at least my generation and older. We didn't get any communication training in vet school. I think younger generations, they get.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't get like 0.0 hours, literally.
0.0, yeah. Well, I think that's going to...
Talk to people.
Well, you're unique in this sense. Do you find, because you are boarded both American and European, so do you find a difference in that?
Very different, yeah. Nutrition education is very different, at least in Europe, compared to the US. Yeah. And as I said, like communication might be a weak point in some areas, but I learned all of my nutrition for farm animals. It's not the same way I would talk to a farmer that I would talk to a pet owner, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think, too, a lot of veterinary professionals are nervous about having nutrition conversations because they may be difficult. Clients may push back. There may be a tricky subject that they don't feel, exactly confident in. So I think this book provides a lot of that foundation to have those conversations, in addition to the communication tips and communication section that are in there to improve the communication aspect as well as the nutrition knowledge.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you. As I've looked through the book, I see those chapters and practical tools. Miriam, would you be able to explain the difference between those chapters and practical tools?
Yeah, I think the chapters are more what you're used to with a textbook. It's the longer form explanation, goes into more detail about whatever that topic is for that chapter. But even within that, they're still designed to be succinct and brief and still easy to use as a very quick reference. The practical tools, however, those are designed to really be quick and dirty reference. I have a very particular topic. I just want to get, I think they're all 2 pages. I just want to get a very short overview of what do I do for feeding a large breed puppy? What about all this microbiome information that's out there? What do I do with that on the clinical basis? And so really being able to have that honed in resource to go over these very quick topics.
Okay, that's a great answer. Thank you. So as we look to, again, these chapters, these practical tools, kind of bringing the application to life, there's also visuals in there as well, Jonathan. Would you be able to comment to that?
I think the visuals are very helpful to provide a lot of information in a concise way, so it makes it even easier to refer to when you're very, very busy and you just have a few minutes to look at a chart or a flow chart. And so an example of that could be, for example, a flow chart about having these difficult discussions with owners about disinformation regarding pet nutrition. So you have the different steps that are outlined in a chart of how to approach that conversation. It is also helpful for those people that are more visual learners to get that information, because making it in a graphic form can really help you assimilate and understand a lot of information sometimes.
We all learn in different ways. So I think the visuals are great for that. And it's written by a number of authors. We really saw it when chartering this project, if you will, of creating this handbook. We wanted to get the global perspective. So, Ceci, would you be able to comment too?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about the book, that it's a global approach. Because we do tend to focus a lot on sometimes where you work and things. And yeah, I think the idea was to have different authors from different areas of the world so they could give different perspectives on common problems. Especially related to like different legislation or different regulatory bodies that might affect, for example, how the label is written or how the ingredients are described. And then also, I really like about the handbook is that it does not give you product recommendations, it gives you nutritional recommendations. So it gives you ranges for, high, low, average. It might give you targeted ranges of specific nutrients if we care about that for specific situations. And then you can use that information to find what's available to you in your area, in your region, and try to, you're not depending on, I can fix this because the product doesn't exist where I am. And I think that's lovely that it unites us that way, because we do face common problems.
Yeah, nutrition needs to be raised to the forefront of pet conversations all over the world. So, yeah, it's a great perspective. What comments about what is unique in terms of the chapters, the tools, or even the sections of this handbook that you would not find in other textbooks in veterinary medicine?
Yeah, I think I can speak to that. Not only the uniqueness from the global perspective, but also you'll find lots of valuable resources and tools in there that speak to the well pet. So there's a lot of discussion oftentimes that comes in about dental health, digestive health, and maybe we have really good resources for those when it comes to dental disease or GI disease. We might have a go-to place. But I think this handbook is actually going to be the go-to place for what do we do when we want discussions around dental health or GI health. So I think that it's going to be really unique and helpful from that perspective.
Okay. So that said, let's get into kind of the implementation of this book and how we see this being utilized by the different audiences that you've mentioned before. So how does this book first make a difference to the veterinary profession?
Yeah, I can start the ball rolling. So the Purina Institute Handbook of Canine and Feline Well Pet Nutrition has, to my view, like 3 very important things that make it different, like the global perspective we discussed. Second, that it's focused for general practice. I think this is rare among books, like most textbooks ask for like studying. But there's not a lot of books that are directly applicable to general practice, particularly in nutrition. And third is very practical, we got told, all the authors, like, keep it short. So, and no, with good reason. And for me, this makes it a tool for practitioners, technicians, nurses, everybody involved to just be able to use it on the go. So we'll have this information, you have your appointments, you can prepare, or you can just use it. So the idea is that it's just very practical. You can use it directly, and everybody can get something out of it. I don't know. It feels like I keep saying the same. But.
I love the fact that it is. It's concise, and we joke that the chapters of the practical tools that we may have written, keep them concise, and you as editors kept us on track for that, so thank you. But it truly is important for to keep it concise. We don't have much time during the day, during appointments. At the end of a day, do we want to be reading a book? yes, this book we will want to read because it is short and concise and it contains foundational and, again, communication skills, etc. But more importantly, that it can be applied and used by the entire veterinary healthcare team. So because nutrition really truly is a team effort, bringing that to the forefront. So how do we see it enhancing communication during appointments?
Yeah, I think for enhancing communication during the appointments, it's a lot of the things that we've already discussed. So within the book, there's a communication tip in each chapter, and then there's a whole section devoted to communication, allowing you to have those difficult conversations and maybe giving every member of the veterinary team some prompts and some good just different skills and other things to bring up in various scenarios. So if you have a question that an owner is asking you, more than likely there is a practical communication tip included somewhere within this book. And so for those who are struggling with that, how to respond to questions, you can look at this and really get some good information to help you go through that process.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Very nice.
I would just build on that, you know, sometimes when you have these difficult conversations, having information that is factual and science-based can make your argument that much stronger, especially if there is a difference in opinion. You have something to back your information and to show that this is actually based on research.
To your point about the misinformation earlier, and yeah, this being more of a credible resource for us to empower us. And speaking of empowering, how do we see the book being used amongst veterinary health professionals to work together and use the book as a team, again, to bring to add nutritional management to a case? Ashley, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I love that. And for me, the key word is probably together, because how cool that we can incorporate the entire veterinary team to work together. I think that it's really going to provide a foundation, one, for everybody to be comfortable with well pet nutrition and be okay having some of those conversations. Or if they're uncomfortable, they know where to go to help facilitate those conversations. So I think it will be very valuable from the team perspective, but I also think it will be a nice tool if maybe your team is all in on nutrition, but maybe you're struggling with how to implement your veterinary nurse or how to better utilize them in nutrition. There are some sections in there that will help you develop what that can look like in practice. And so I think it's going to be really advantageous for that reason as well.
That's excellent. Thank you. So, yeah, certainly we see it being used by the team. Anything specific to how do you envision seeing it with specifically general practitioners and veterinary technicians or nurses?
Yeah, actually utilizing it in practice, I think it's great because it's a digital resource. So whether you're in the exam room or you're in between appointments, you can pull this up and do a quick search or star a page or make a note, or even in conversation, you're listening to the owner, but maybe you're pulling up a takeaway because you're just struggling to figure out exactly what that point is that you want to make and where can I find support. So I think it's going to be really helpful from that reason.
Excellent, excellent. And you know, it is one thing to be implementing it in practice with the healthcare team. If we back that up a little bit, Marianne, Jonathan, all of us really have spent some time in academia to a degree, some of us more than others. How do we see this being implemented with veterinary students and veterinary technician nurse students? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that when we're talking about students, the foundational information that they can then build on as they're meeting with patients every day, that's what's really important for them. The fact that this resource is available electronically, that's huge. Students are always looking towards their tablets or their phones or whatever else they have on their person to go ahead and look up resources. And I love the idea that as they're in the exam room, talking to owners, learning how to go through that communication process for everything, they have the ability to bring this resource up and maybe in the moment look at some of those communication tips or the key takeaways or any of those things because it's designed to be so succinct for them in that aspect. And that's going to continue to empower them over time to have that nutritional knowledge and be more comfortable as they continue in their training and then go out into practice after that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And being with the individual student, how do we insert this into more of a curriculum?
Yeah, I think, as a veterinary educator, I think that this book can be incorporated in probably two ways. For one, it could be incorporated into the didactic curriculum in the earlier years to be a reference for a student, a resource for them to get valuable scientific information, and also to be a quick reference for them when they're actually in their later years doing their clinical rotations, seeing patients, interacting with owners, because a lot of owners have questions. Even if they came to the clinic for a completely different reason, they would have a nutrition-related question. So having that resource available to you, yeah, it's always good to be ready and have something to refer to, especially if you're not entirely sure what they're going to ask, or if you need something that is evidence-based, really, really handy.
Right. So, and as we look to academia in particular, there's a number of appointments that come in. Some of them are more for the specialists. Some of them are more for the primary care centers and, general practice. We can be using our previous clinical nutrition handbook for those specialist appointments, some practical tips in there as well. But this book definitely preps you as a student, I would say, inserting that science-based information that is unbiased for when those students do graduate and go into practice. Some of them will go on to do an internship, a residency, they'll become a specialist. How do we see that group of professionals utilizing this handbook?
Well, we hope they all become nutritionists.
We are small.
But nutrition is always a part of the appointment, whether they come for surgery or for treatment of cancer. There's always that aspect of their management because everybody eats.
And I think that's what we all love about being in the discipline of nutrition within veterinary medicine. We can talk to the cardiologist or the orthopedist or the gastroenterologist and so forth. So no, I do think that is, believe it or not, even the neurologist. So nutrition permeates all disciplines of veterinary medicine, but it certainly permeates WellPet. So I think that this handbook really applies to every appointment, no matter where we are. So, yeah. I think, do we see any more use for the specialists, that residents, intern?
I would say, as Jonathan said, everybody eats. You need to give a feeding plan. Any of our patients, be it healthy, be it sick, they need nutrients, they need calories.
Yeah.
They do. We do too, right? So everybody needs to leave the room with a feeding plan. What do I feed? How much do I feed? And how do I feed it? Doesn't matter if you're a specialist, a GP, a technician. We need to provide that information.
Skills.
You're making me self-conscious. So specialists, especially, I think they're very focused on their specialty, and sometimes they don't really have the time to go read a textbook on nutrition. So having this super handy can really help them and their team round up their specialist advice with also good nutrition advice. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I want to ask you questions about the chapters that you wrote and your contributions to it. Again, thank you for being here, but also thank you for editing and authoring some of this book as well. So, Dr. Murphy, I'll start with you. You wrote a chapter on supporting a healthy weight in cats and dogs. What do you see as the importance of maintaining a healthy weight, and what are some of the key takeaways from that chapter?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I think for myself in practice where I am, I spend a lot of my time working on obesity management, so helping pets that have already gained excess weight lose that weight. In reality, what would be so much better is if we shift our focus to preventing that weight gain to begin with. When we can go ahead and do that, we know that we're giving those pets just their best chance of living their best healthy life, right? They're much more comfortable, all of these other benefits that they get from that. So the focus of the chapter was to include information on risk factors. when you're meeting that puppy or kitten for the first time, you're going into that room, you then have some information in the background to help you decide, is this pet, this individual pet, at a higher risk of developing obesity compared to another pet that I may see today? If they are, then I'm going to spend a little bit more time educating that owner about the risk that this pet naturally has and help them right from the beginning during those initial vaccine appointments to help them figure out how can I appropriately feed my pet so that they're not gaining excess weight later on in life. There's sections in there going through how to have some of those conversations, little tips and tricks about different things that you can do to help them take actionable steps to actually prevent that excess weight gain. And I think that's what brings us back to the focus on the well pet. If you can help prevent these disease states from occurring, and again, they're going to have an appropriate nutritional foundation, that's where these chapters come into play. And I think that ends up being the focus. I would love if I saw less of those obese and overweight pets. Maybe they didn't have to come in through our service. They're so much harder to treat once they're in there. We know it's a lot easier for them to regain that weight even once they lose it. So let's set them up for success and help them prevent it to even begin with.
Yeah, thank you. And what is it, the statistic today about overweightedness and obesity, roughly 60% of the canine and feline population, maybe? So
yeah, I think it depends on where you're looking globally, but yeah, certainly it's the majority.
Good number, yeah. So an ounce of prevention, right? An ounce of adipose tissue isn't doing anybody any favors. Just take care of them from the beginning. And again, thank you for your chapter, because that's going to really help with educating us about that and why it's important, just beyond cosmetics. So thank you. And aesthetics. So Catherine, following up on that, as I recall, you wrote kind of a practical tool on the impact of maintaining the healthy weight and lifespan. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in 2002, Purina published the results of a landmark study looking at the results of two groups of dogs. One group of dogs was kept at a lean body condition score about 4 to 5 out of 9, whereas the other control dogs were kept at a body condition score of about 6 to 7 out of 9. And there were huge differences between these groups over their life. They were looked at throughout their life. The lean dogs lived almost 2 years longer than the control group of dogs, so it was a big difference in lifespan. And they also had a later onset of chronic diseases such as osteoarthritis. So there's a really big benefit of keeping dogs in lean body condition score. And that was actually the first study that showed that. So that was really instrumental in our nutritional management of patients. Another thing is that there's been some studies looking at talking points when you have conversations about weight management with owners. And the difference in lifespan has been a really big reason that pet owners want to do weight loss plans when you bring it up to them, when veterinarians bring it up to them. So it's a big difference in lifespan between even just body condition score of 6 to 7 and body condition score of 4 to 5. But it also is a talking point to start a weight loss plan and have that kind of ball rolling in that direction if needed.
And yes, thank you. And I think it really highlights the point where the body condition scoring chart within the book as well, and implementing that in practice. And it makes me think that, Ashley, you wrote a chapter on communication with puppy and kitten owners as well. So please elaborate on that and body condition scoring early on and educating owners to that and feeding guidelines and so forth.
Yeah, so my chapter really tried to focus on what are routine things that maybe you could talk to these new puppy and kitten owners, or even just maybe they have a new pet and you're trying to establish a structure for things that we can discuss when you return to the clinic. Part of that, I do think, is body condition score and muscle condition scoring. So not only being comfortable as the veterinary team, but we need to get the owners comfortable so that they can also help identify, hey, maybe we're starting to go in a direction we don't want to. But with that, I think we also have to focus on management strategies. So we all know they really enjoy feeding their pet most of the time. So what are ways that we can do that might make it a little more active, that might extend some of the time or enjoyment for the pet when they're having different meals? And a lot of times I also think conversation comes up around dental health or treats, and those kind of go together. So it's a great opportunity to understand and be comfortable talking about how we can have maybe preventative dental care, but also stay within a well-balanced diet and still provide enrichment and play through treats. So that's a kind of the outline for my chapter, but there's also a really nice practical tool in there from another VTS in nutrition that focuses on communicating with different types of owners, whether it's cat or dog or first time or second time, and kind of strategizing how that conversation might look different.
I think that's really important. Oh, I'm sorry, Jonathan, please.
I was just going to add that, so many times we see owners of obese pets that are completely oblivious to the fact that their pet is overweight or obese. Yes. So having that early discussion on how to recognize obesity and body condition score, and also having these conversations and communication around recognizing, hey, your pet is overweight and obese and it's not healthy, and this is what we need to do to improve things, can also be a very valuable tool that we have in the book.
Yeah. I think some of the communication tips, the practical tools really kind of like bring down some of those barriers for us, where many of us in the profession feel a little awkward at times to have that conversation, to say, hey, you know what, I think your pet is overweight or obese. So again,
especially if they don't bring it up and they came from something completely different, right?
Yeah,
You're like,
again, that communication is so important. I do think that, and just to the point, Ashley, about when you're talking about puppies and kittens and what do we discuss during those appointments? They're coming in repeatedly every 3 to 4 weeks for those vaccine appointments. There's a lot going on during that time, but somewhere along those appointments, I'd say there's opportunity to talk about nutrition, because once they're through their vaccine appointments and if they elect to spay or neuter, then we're not going to see them again for another year. So discussing those guidelines.
Yeah, and I think looking at being comfortable getting a really good diet history can help look at how are we going to make adjustments moving forward. Do we need to make adjustments moving forward? I also think it can bring to light in these conversations what I call the non-negotiables with owners, in terms of what are things that they really enjoy, and oftentimes they do include a food component with their pet. And so how can we work together to still make this enjoyable interaction that maintains health for your puppy or kitten, but also still achieve the interaction that you're really looking to have.
And it becomes a practical aspect, and sometimes there's a little bit of compromise there, but it's more important to achieve that, communicate successfully, and even follow up as a healthcare team. This is it's not just the veterinarian, it's not just the veterinary technician, it's the entire team. So, yeah.
To the communication standpoint, I think it's really nice to have extra references in this handbook for that, because maybe I'm comfortable saying something one way all of the time, but that one way may not work for this owner. Right. And so having access to maybe the way that others have thought about it or the way that others have had success before can really just impact your ability to speak and work with those owners.
Yeah. So, okay. So, during those appointments of those puppy and kitten appointments, at times I have, and I'm sure all of us here and folks that are watching here have experienced, sometimes owners will ask about ingredients on a pet food label as well. And, the veterinary profession being that number one trusted source of nutritional recommendations. Ceci, do you have any comment there?
I had the pleasure of writing a chapter on ingredients.
I think that's your chapter.
That's my chapter. Yeah. I always think, I myself have cats too, like I'm also a pet owner. It's when you're going to decide on buy their food, you have so many choices, like literally thousands, and overwhelming. And one of the things people are going to reach for is the ingredient list. And the ingredient list can be sometimes too mysterious, right? Some ingredients, they might not be, for regulatory reasons, usually it might not be as recognizable to a person that eats food differently, right? So there's a lot of questions coming about ingredients, and sometimes a lot also of myths. Like some ingredients really get a bad rap. Like I try, to discuss that this is,
But every ingredient's on the label for a reason.
100%. That's focus of the chapter was a little bit of that. Like, an ingredient is an ingredient. Like, it gives me nutrients. That's its role. There's no fillers there. There's nothing that you put in there for no reason.
Yes.
So part of the chapter is talk about that, like, this ingredient provides energy, but also these vitamins and minerals. It helps to make the food the way it is. It makes it more yummy. And, sort of define some of those most common ingredients that can be a concern and clarify why they are there. And then also some tips on communicating about them, which, can be complicated because it's more of an emotional discussion sometimes than a science-based one, really, in a sense. So
I think we would all comment to the fact that sometimes we've been faced with clients in the nutrition realm where the conversation at times is emotionally charged, and many people have opinions, but we need a credible source to be able to
and I
go.
think separating what's an ingredient and what's a nutrient,
Yes.
this can be not everybody has clear what, this is an ingredient, this is a nutrient, they're not the same.
Right.
And so talking a little about that, like what your pet needs is nutrients, and that's why you can make a complete diet with a gazillion different ingredients as long as your nutrient requirements are met. So having people knowledgeable of those ingredients to make a good diet is more important sometimes than what ingredient is there necessarily.
And yes, thank you. So, and
I also think that veterinary professionals are very scared to have conversations about ingredients with pet owners because they don't feel confident to have those discussions. So I would definitely give the advice that this is a great resource, but also veterinary professionals are coming from a place where they have education to have those conversations. And it really, I hope this book and that chapter especially can empower veterinary professionals to have those conversations.
Yeah. And I will actually just take a minute to say, because I am at the Purina Institute, that on our Center Square website, we actually do have hot topics that discuss many of these ingredients as well. But Dr. Lennox, I do want to just shift gears slightly here for a second and talk about your practical tool that you wrote, which is the concept of biological age and how it could be used with well pet nutrition. Would you be able to discuss in brief this concept, because it is kind of a broad topic?
Yeah, it's a broad topic, but it's also very new to veterinary medicine. So it's been discussed in human medicine for many years, but it's a newer concept in veterinary medicine. And chronological age is the number of years, months, days the pet has been alive, whereas biological age is a different representation of how well the pet is aging. And there can be a mismatch between chronological age and biological age. If chronological age is greater than biological age, it indicates that the pet is aging very well. It's very healthy compared to animals of the same chronological age, whereas if the biological age is greater than the chronological age, it indicates that they have accelerated aging, which may impact health and other aspects of aging.
Yeah. So what are some of the factors that may affect biological age?
Yeah, so it's, like I said, it's a newer topic in veterinary medicine, so it's not totally kind of like parsed out. But we do know that obesity is a big impact on biological age. It increases biological age. We know that calorie consumption can increase or decrease biological age if there's a lot of treats and calories are being overconsumed, can increase biological age. We know that feeding a complete and balanced diet versus something that's not complete and balanced can have an impact on biological age. We want pets to get the nutrients that they need on a regular basis every day and not consume too much or too little. So that it is an interesting marker of health, and it'll be really interesting to see how it's used going forward.
That's fascinating. Thank you. So just bringing this back out and kind of getting close to wrapping up our discussion here. Again, thank you, everyone. I do want to just ask from Catherine here, because you are at the Purina Institute, how does this resource of the Purina Institute Handbook of Canine and Feline Well Pet Nutrition differ from other resources that Purina Institute offers?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have Center Square, which is a toolkit of nutrition resources to facilitate conversations on our website. So that's one resource. This is an additional resource to complement Center Square. Center Square is a source of very quick, easily accessible information, and it will remain that. The Purina Institute Handbook of Canine and Feline Well Pet Nutrition will complement that and provide additional depth, even though the information is similar to what's in the briefs on Center Square. It will really just add to that.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I will wrap up and say that thank you to all of you, your expertise, your authorship, your editorship. Thank you for joining me. It's always wonderful to see all of you. Such a tight-knit group that we are of nutrition experts. So the Purina Institute Handbook of Canine and Feline Well Pet Nutrition is provided as a free ebook after signing up for scientific email communications from the Purina Institute. The goal is for nutrition to be accessible to all veterinary teams across the world. Nutrition conversations should be happening at every appointment, and the ability to have these conversations should be available to everyone. And I think we can all agree that this book is here to help achieve that and implement that goal. For those of you that have already signed up for our scientific communications, you'll receive an email soon to download the book as well.